Get ready to dive deep into Buffalo's vibrant music scene because we're stepping inside the fabulous Flamingo Lounge for the 9th season of Local Music Magic. In the Flamingo Lounge with Rockabilly Greg is more than just a podcast. It's a collection of stories that delves deep into the vibrant musical history of Buffalo and Western New York, creating a living archive where each story adds a unique thread to the overall narrative. This season, we're taking a deep dive into the heart of the music community. Join us for personal conversations with musicians and industry pros, where we celebrate the collective creativity that makes our favorite artists, venues, and events so special. But before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsors, CatsLikeUs.com, Diamond Hawk Golf Course and Pub, and valued supporters Buffalo Ironworks and Sportsman's Tavern for helping to keep the music alive. This week's guest, Steven Sadoff, a member of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame class of 2012, is a bass player extraordinaire with deep pockets. He plays with every inch of his body and soul. A much sought-after band member, he is a popular go-to guy for recording sessions and the first call when a last-minute fill-in is needed. Steven played at the First University at Buffalo Blues Fest in 1969. Since then, he has performed with countless artists and lent his talents to numerous recordings, concerts, and club gigs. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Flamingo Lounge, Steven Sadoff.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me,
Steve,
Greg.
you're welcome. I'm glad you could come over. I've been on my list for a long time. I finally got a hold of you and said, hey, let's do it. And things kind of get nuts, but I'm glad you're here. And you brought some great pictures down, so looking forward to getting those on the website, and you got lots of stuff there to talk about with different bands you've been involved with. But before we get into all of that, I always like to ask everyone, did you have an aha moment when you said, man, music's what I want to do?
Absolutely. And I still remember starting 5th grade and hearing a saxophone player, alto player, by the name of, I think his name was Ron Tribuco. Never saw him before or since. But I still remember his name. And he was playing alto, and I went home, told my parents I wanted to take music lessons, went to my local school to take lessons, and they didn't teach sax, but they taught trumpet. So my parents said, well, take the trumpet if you like that, then we'll get you sax lessons. So I played trumpet for the next 4 years in school in the orchestras, and first orchestra at school 66 met my good friend Tom Walsh, who was the drummer, who I still play with. So lifelong relationship with him that started by playing the trumpet.
Wow, I never knew you played trumpet.
And not for long. When I in high school, when folk music and the Beatles were big, I started playing guitar and was a guitar player. And was a guitar player. You mentioned the first Buffalo Blues Festival. My friend Mike Campagna couldn't make it, and he asked me to fill in for him. So I played that festival, and Michael, after that, Michael at the time was in a local band called the Kism Revival, which had local musicians, Hall of Famers Steve Nathan on keyboards, and Joe Shinta on bass, horn section. And when that band broke up, he asked me if I wanted to play bass in his next band. And I never played bass before, but it was like, he saw something, whatever. He said, do you want to play bass? I said, I'd love to. I was just starting college. I needed the money to pay my rent. And I never looked back. It just became the instrument of, the love of my life.
Wow. What was the first bass that you had that you bought?
Oh, it was a great story. I went to Kubera's because everybody goes to Kubera's, and told him I want a P bass, precision bass, Fender precision bass, because that's what I was told that you got to have. And he said, I just got this bass in. It's Joe Hesse's bass, Joe Hesse from The Road.
Wow, yeah.
I guess Joe had just gotten into Scientology and real deep, and maybe they weren't going to play for a while, and he sold his bass back to Art. So the first bass I bought was Joe Hesse's bass.
Wow. Do you still have that bass?
Well, two stories about that. Joe called me a year later and wanted to play again. He says, I heard you have my bass.
Mm-hmm.
If it's exactly the same, I'll buy you any bass you want. And
Right.
when I bought it, it had Scientology stickers all over
Oh, wow.
it. First thing I did was take all the stickers
Right.
off and refinish the bass. And I told Joe, and he said, okay, forget it. I want the bass back just like I had it.
Right.
But that bass is still around. Jim Bricado bought that bass from me. And the bass is still alive and well in Buffalo.
Wow. Are you still playing a P bass or?
I pretty much stick with the jazz bass.
Okay.
I go through different periods, I guess, in my life, and stick with one for a while. I've got a jazz bass now that I've been playing for a while, and that's my go-to bass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, first band, were you getting together with the guys? Was that so at college? What was that band?
Well, before college, the first real band I was in, there was always like the kids in the neighborhood. In my neighborhood, everybody played. It was either bought a guitar or you started playing drums.
Yeah.
But the first band that I played in that actually had a gig was called the Weekend Trip, which went on to become Weekend with the Ryan Brothers.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I played guitar in that band and with Tom and Rick Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So my first gig was a CYO dance on Hurdle Avenue.
Oh, no kidding. But what time was that? Like mid-late 60s or?
I would probably say about 66.
Okay. So right kind of in that whole garage rock kind of era where everyone was. No, you're not a Tonawanda guy, are you? Or?
North Buffalo.
North Buffalo. Okay, close enough.
Yeah, so I used to go to...
There's tons of people up in this neck of the woods.
So, we'd walk to the St. Joe's dances.
Yeah.
And you were just talking about the records you have. I'd go see those bands at the St. Joe's dance.
Yeah. A lot of folks have been on here, and they said, there was so many of those CYO dances and different things you could get together that you had a place to play, and before you were old enough to like get in the bars and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they were packed. You go to you go to a teen dance and they were just packed with tons of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where did you go after the beginning of the Weekend band?
A couple of blues bands in town. Eddie Tice's brother, Bob Tice, was a local singer.
Oh, okay.
We had a band together. And pretty much Crosby, Stills, Nash kind of music, playing in R&B and blues. And that was pretty much it until I started playing bass.
Right, yeah. Now, did you play with Stan?
I played with Stan in the King Biscuit Boy band.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
We were touring Canada, and it was right after King Biscuit Boy is Richard Newell from Hamilton, Ontario. Unfortunately, he's deceased, but an extremely talented, gifted harp player, singer. And when I started playing with him was right after he'd recorded an album in New Orleans with Alan Toussaint producing it, and the Meters were the backup band. Everybody knows the Meters. So it was a great band. Before Stan was in it, Kelly J from a band called Crowbar, which was a big Canadian band, was the keyboard player. Jack DeKaiser, who's like a multi-Juno winner in Canada, blues guitar player. Greg Zark, local drummer, Danny McBride, who is another guitar player in the band, who was with David Hasselhoff and a couple other people. But the band was just incredible. And when Kelly left, Stan was the replacement for Kelly.
Right. And for those of you who are new, we're talking about Stan Celeste, of course, the man.
Yeah, one of those guys that only needs one name.
Exactly.
He's like Cher, it'll Stan.
That's good. Sometimes I forget, but I think I've got a King Biscuit Boy, one or two of the CDs. So because I've tried to always collect stuff that you guys are, especially the Hall of Famers that are played on. So. That's how I got started in this record collecting thing. I'm like, I'm going to collect a record from all of the Hall of Famers that
That's
I could
great.
possibly find.
Yeah.
And of course, it's taken me down the rabbit hole. But and of course, burn a hole in my pocket. But what the heck is fun, you know? But it's so interesting. Everyone who comes on the show will mention a band or something. Yeah, we recorded this one. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know about that one. So, you know, I get on Discogs or eBay or whatever and check the local places and see if I can find it. So it's a lot of fun to search out that stuff. And I know you mentioned when you came down the Argyle Street Band. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that band?
Well, in Buffalo, when I started playing in bars in 1970 until 1975, the music scene was incredible. You could play 6 nights a week, and if that band broke up, you'd be in another band the next week that was playing 6 nights a week. Mm-hmm. And when things started slowing down a little bit and drying up, a lot of players left Buffalo and moved to LA or Nashville. And it's 1975, I decided to move to LA. Mm-hmm. And after being there for a little while, Ron Davis and Willie Schultz at that time were in a band called Blue Ox in Phoenix. And that band broke up, and Ron called me up and said, you know, we're thinking of coming to LA. Could I stay at your place for a little while? So Colette and Willie Schultz and Ron drove to my place, and oddly enough, their car broke down right in front of my apartment.
Oh, no kidding.
And I'd never met Colette and Willie before. Willie Schultz was, I don't know if everybody knows his name on the podcast, but
right.
Local singer, songwriter, magnificent player, magnificent guy. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore.
Right.
But anyway, I met them at that moment when Ron came. So they ended up moving into our apartment building. Fast forward a little bit, Doug Morgano, who was also living in LA at the time, and Tom Walsh, who was in LA playing with the band America at the time, kind of started out. We just got together and we're making music for fun. Mm-hmm. And we lived on Argyle Street.
Oh, okay. Okay. There you go.
Hence the name.
Yeah.
So after a little while of fooling around, it became something of a band. Incredible songwriters in the band: Willie, Ronnie, and Doug Morgano, and the 5 of us, and sometimes with Sandy Konikoff at that time.
Wow.
We put the band together and started doing showcases out there and looking for a record deal.
Right. That was all out in L.A.?
Yeah.
All Buffalo guys out in L.A.
Right.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't know Willie until I moved to L.A.
Yeah. Now, was that just because there was more of a industry out there to go and to record and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Buffalo, for some reason, wasn't a good jumping off point. You know, there's not a lot of people that come here to get musicians to go on the road, or there's not at that time there wasn't a big recording thing here. So kind of like to stay alive in the business, you had to go to a mecca. Mm-hmm.
Right. At that point, was L.A. the place, or
LA,
New York? Or?
Yeah, L.A.
L.A.
And, of course, New York always.
Right.
And Nashville at that time was, now it's more diverse. Back then it was much more strictly country.
Sure. Yeah. Nashville seems to be now the center. You know, everyone seems to be moving like to Nashville to get all the, the studio gigs and all that. And I know a lot of the labels have all kind of moved their headquarters down to Nashville instead of LA and New York. I don't know what the reason was, or maybe it's because it's in the center of the country.
Who knows?
Who knows? But
it's getting, Nashville is like getting so big right now. It's like LA.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard, because I've never been to Nashville, and I've told some guys that I know that live down there, and they're like, yeah, man, he says, it's really gotten like, Broadway was, like Chippewa Street back in our day, at the 20, 30 years ago or whatever. And now it's like, it's so commercial, and, all the great joints aren't joints anymore. they're tourist attractions.
Yeah.
So they're all like, we know we know the good spots to go.
Yeah.
So it's, where the locals go, if you will. So that's what I always like. So
right, the first time I went to Nashville, it was still the old Ryman Auditorium.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get to play there?
No. Never. I didn't spend much time in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I was there last year visiting Mike Caputi, which is the first time I've been there in years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine that stage is special. Have you ever had an opportunity to play a stage that kind of like that? That's like, wow, I can't believe I'm standing on this stage or this room.
When I started playing with King Biscuit Boy, it was the first tour I ever did, and like I said, he just got done doing that album with Alan Toussaint, and there must have been a big budget money from his label at the time. So my first gig was, you fly to the gig. We got on the airplane and we flew to the gig.
Wow.
We got off the airplane and a limo picked us up. So I started at the top and I worked my way down. So playing some of those shows, which were probably the largest venues I'd play at the time. So.
Wow. Well, like what cities were those in? Like, was it like Vegas or stuff like that? Or?
No, it was all Canadian.
All Canadian.
It was Hamilton, Toronto.
Oh, wow.
Calgary, Vancouver. I'm leaving things out. Thunder Bay, but it was like cross country.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we all know, being here in Buffalo, what Canada has, with Tragically Hip, and
yeah,
and Great Big Sea and Blue Rodeo and a lot of those bands.
Yeah.
But Ramblin' Lou, as you can see here on my wall, I mean, he did a lot of stuff in Canada. And
yeah,
a lot of his recordings are coming out of Canada.
Well, and Canada also had the Canadian content rule, so King Biscuit Boy and other guys from Canada were like getting airplay because Canada would expressly play Canadians as part of their content.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, that's interesting. So where did you go after the Argyle Street band?
After the Argyle band broke up, we did I'm not sure chronologically how it worked out, but the Argyle band was playing what is now called like alternative music.
Okay.
It was all original band, and at that time in the 80s, it was a much harder thing to stay alive and be a full-time musician doing that. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of come full circle, and there's festivals, and alternative bands are doing pretty well.
Right.
But back then it was different.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep up, you had to change and play different styles of music. Mm-hmm. So there was a couple of bands. We did Billy and the Heartbeats, which was pretty much the same members. Billy McEwen was in that band, and then we were doing top 40 music, really.
Okay.
Trying to stay alive, going down the road playing top 40 music.
Right. Of course, back then in the 80s, that's when video was like the king, right? I mean, if you didn't have a video on MTV.
Right. And I thought that was going to be the greatest thing for, musicians,
right,
or bands like us. It would be like, okay, somebody's going to tape us live, and that would be what's on MTV. Instead, sure. MTV became this totally different thing.
Oh, well, Thriller kind of killed it for everybody, right? I mean, a little 15-minute movie made, and it did. I think it changed because I'm an MTV child. I mean, I was in high school when MTV came on, and my friends and we just watched MTV all the time.
Yeah, and they became like little vignettes, movie vignettes.
And that kind of introduced me to a lot of bands, though, that weren't getting played. I listened to 97 Rock back then, and we weren't hearing, I wasn't hearing Squeeze, and I was hearing like the basic Talking Heads and Stray Cats, but then there was some wild stuff on MTV. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool, and
yeah,
and then going to college and meeting a lot of guys from like Long Island and New York, and they opened up my eyes to a whole bunch of other stuff that's, not just the classic rock stuff. And
yeah, not
that there's anything wrong with classic rock, but man, there was just so much out there. It was kind of cool. But now you've got YouTube, right? So you can find anything you want on YouTube. But you can do that whole, just take a picture and get your phone out, take a little video, pop it up there, and and get yourself known. And even if you're doing covers, I mean, some people take them down, but you never know.
Yeah. I guess it's a blessing and a curse. Anybody can come and tape your band and put it on YouTube. And I guess, that's kind of what people did with cassette tapes back in my days. Like you'd go and you record the band and
right. Yeah. All those bootlegs. I think I got a few of them down here. Not many, but a few. Mostly Stray Cats boots, but yeah, I mean, everyone was mixtapes, right?
Yeah.
Set your recorder up next to the radio and record what's on the radio and make your own mixtapes. And it's just different technologies make it a little easier. It's, as I say, it's a lot easier for me to do a podcast now than it might have even been 10 years ago. With the technology, and just brings everything full circle so we can record all these great stories and all that. So going back into the 80s there, and you were doing those cover songs and all that. What was the next step? Now, and I should say though, were you doing music just full time at that point? Did you have a day job at the time?
When Billy and the Heartbeats went on the road and we were doing those cover tunes, after a while, I said, I don't want to be on the road playing cover tunes.
Right.
It's tough enough being on the road.
Right.
Being on the road playing songs you didn't want to play was even worse. Mm-hmm. So.
Yep. Free bird.
So I was actually the first one to bail out of Billy and the Heartbeats.
Okay. Came
back to Buffalo and got my first day job.
Well, there you go. Hey, it happens to everybody, right? It's like you said, it's a tough gig.
Yeah.
And,
so I mean, I got a day job, never stopped playing music. I always had a band on the weekends, so it was always work all week, play all weekend.
Right.
And there was no such thing as a weekend. You play on the weekend.
Right. But that's, I mean, for you, was that play or was that work too?
No, it was work. I mean, I enjoyed the work.
Right. Okay.
But now at this point in my life, like a weekend comes along and I'm not working and it's great. I'll go out to my cabin and I've got a weekend,
Right. Yeah. So now, like coming up into did you get back into the original scene, after doing the cover stuff, or have you just kind of been?
A little bit of both. Mm-hmm. Going back before I went to LA, the music scene in Buffalo was so great that there was so many musicians. And where I'm going with this is musicians I still play with from that era. Mm. One of the bands is with Doug Yeomans, Low Blue Flame. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I played some of Doug's originals, so that's some of that. But mostly, I would say it's cover tunes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, did you get into writing at all, or are you strictly?
With the Argyle band, wrote a little bit, but not very much. One or two songs that made it onto some recordings that we have, but not so much.
Mm-hmm. So now we mentioned at the top that you're kind of a go-to guy. So do you do a lot of studio work, or?
Not as much now as I did before. Like anything else, you get to get a little bit older, and everybody wants to use younger guys, and they play a different style than I play. So back then, I was more of a go-to guy when people were recording music that was more of what I do. Now music's changed a bit.
Sure. Now, kind of getting on that. So, what is the kind of music that you do, and what makes your style like the Steven Sadoff style?
My influences going back, listening to things were guys like James Jamerson from Detroit, or Willie Weeks, Chuck Rainey. Mm-hmm. So more of an R&B kind of style.
Okay.
Listen to the blues guys, got that. When I was going back, this is totally out of chronological order, but going back before I left LA, the band I was playing with my Campagna, we ended up getting a house for the whole band to live in. So it was our band and 3 guys from our band and 3 guys from what later became Spyro Gyra.
Okay.
And we lived on the west side of Buffalo, and right at the end of our street was a bar called Sundays. And every Sunday there was a gentleman, Elmo Witherspoon, that would play there with the Houserockers. The Houserockers at that time were Brad Gray on drums, Ernie Carell on guitar, Joe Guarino on bass, and Elmo Witherspoon playing guitar and singing, and then eventually Jimmy Cleary. And they played on Sunday afternoons because everybody else had a gig. Nobody was working Sunday afternoons.
Okay.
So Sunday afternoons at Sundays became really a big thing. It was packed.
Right.
Spoon was the best blues singer around, great guitar player. He was a real deal back, he's from, allegedly from the same town, B.B. King, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was going very strong, and so well that those guys decided to make it a full-time band. So they put the Houserockers together with Sandy Konikoff now playing drums and Phil Dre and Jay Beckenstein playing sax, Ernie Carell on guitar, Jimmy Cleary on keyboards, and Joe Guarino was the original bass player, but he was still committed to his band for the next couple of weeks. So they got a gig at the Bell Star and asked me to be the bass player for the first 2 weeks of the band. So here I am at, 23 years old playing with all my idols already.
Wow, yeah. I was going to say, that's like a Buffalo Music Hall of Fame supergroup. I mean,
it was.
Holy smokes.
It was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was in heaven.
Yeah.
And when the first 2 weeks came to an end, I was kind of crushed. How am I ever going to do this again?
Right.
So I went back working with a commercial band with Donna McDaniels, who was a local singer.
Yep. Going to win that cup.
Going to win that cup. Exactly.
Yep.
So I went back playing with Donna, and we were playing at the Executive, and I got home, I don't know, those days you get home at 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
And went to bed, and at 4:00 in the morning, there's a knock on my door, and it's Elmo Witherspoon. Can I come in, have a drink? Yeah, come on in. And he goes, I know you're bummed out about not being in the band anymore, but I'll find you a band, and don't worry, we'll work together again. And he did. He found me a band playing with, now I can't think of his name, James Peterson.
Oh, okay.
His son, Lucky Peterson, was a local phenom. Lucky was pretty young at the time, and we'd play at James's Club down on Sycamore Street.
Right. Wow.
And he'd make Lucky come down and play a couple tunes every night. And so that was how I really got immersed in the blues, playing at the Governor's Inn for a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like one hell of an education you had there playing with those guys. I mean, man, I would imagine they wouldn't have kept you around if you weren't able to play.
I was somehow I did the right thing at the right time and was able to keep my gigs. And,
right. Yeah. No, it's like, now, is that because at the top was, it's extraordinary with deep pockets? Is that because you're really finding that pocket on the bass? And that's, because that's really what those guys need, right?
Absolutely. And the guys that I was going to hear to learn how to play back then, now everybody goes onto YouTube to listen. Back then you'd go hear the local guys.
Right.
The first local guy I went, really got immersed in on bass was Tommy Calandra. Raven, which is, in my opinion, is still one of the best bands ever. I'd listen to Tommy and Joe Guarino also playing with Spoon at the time. I'd listen to those two guys and got quite an education from them. Started college and went to UB and just being in the music department, we're all around incredible players. But pretty much then it was the record player. You know, you'd go home and you'd like really study people off of records.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to have a good ear for that, though, I know, because sometimes when I listen to a record, everything kind of like blends together for me, as opposed to really listening to it and saying, okay, that they're doing this right here at this point. And, you know, I would imagine you wear out the grooves after a while, you know, backing it up and everything. But that's just, it always impresses me when folks are on the podcast and they say, yeah, we listen to this stuff and, you know, we figured out this wasn't this note, it was this note, and they did this, and, you know, maybe, I don't know, whatever the technique was that, you know, was relevant.
And then maybe you go back years later and say, no, I was playing that wrong.
Did anybody ever tell you that? Just like, no, that's not how you play that, but you make it your own, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the fun, too, is you hear it the way you think you hear it in your head, and it's like, no, I want to play it this way. And,
so I guess it's just something that, you know, you're born with or whatever.
Right.
You know, I didn't realize until Michael asked me to play bass that that was the thing for me. That's the thing that I identify with.
Right. Yes. So you just kind of got your P bass and picked it up and said, okay, here you go. Here's
had a gig the next day.
Right. Wow.
Right.
So now you always played 4-string?
Always played a Fender bass, never
Yeah.
played anything else. And as soon as I bought that bass, I was working at the masthead a couple nights a week.
Wow.
And never stopped working after that.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. That I envy you guys that can do that, because it's I've tried guitar. It just doesn't. I guess I get too distracted too. I mean, it's you know, I'll listen to a song and start playing. It's like, this sounds like this, and they get off into the weeds. But so and people have told me too. They're like, well, if you're not sitting on your couch watching TV with a guitar in your hands and keeping those fingers going, and you're not a guitar player, you know, or a bass player or whatever. Everyone who really is into it has the instrument.
And even when you're doing something else, I mean,
Yeah.
I remember watching Buffalo Bills football game. It was just sitting there with a bass in my hand and playing through the game, but you're watching it, you're hearing it, you're playing your bass.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, you can turn the sound down on those, you know, and just watch the game and just.
I really wanted, you know, I didn't need volume on the bass. Just practice it.
Exactly.
Without the
It's just get those fingers going and get that muscle memory going, and it's. Now, do you sing at all?
No.
No. You ever tried?
No.
That's why you play the bass.
But I have, you know, like I've especially in LA, where they said, "Are you a singing bass player?" And I'd say yes, wanted to get the job.
Oh, okay.
And then after I got the job, it would be like, "Okay, you're going to sing," and you know, of course, I never did.
Right.
But they didn't, you know, they never got rid of me. I was already in the band.
That's right. That's how you get in the door, right? Then you just got to play well enough to. Now, I'm a rockabilly guy. Have you ever played upright?
I like to say I was an upright owner.
Okay.
I had an upright, played on it, and it was never I never fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never liked it enough to take it to a gig.
Right.
It was always my jazz bass that I would want to take out the door with me. And eventually I just said, you know, I'm not going to spend the time practicing on it because I'm not taking it out. So in answer to your question, I played one, but it never became a go-to instrument for me.
Right. Of course, back in the 70s, it wasn't hard to take that around because the cars were as big as houses back then. But nowadays, I can imagine trying to lug a full-size bass around, you know.
Yeah, when I was in L.A., one thing you had to do at the time if you wanted to get session work is be a great reader, which I wasn't at the time. I mean, started playing trumpet when I was 4, but I wasn't a great reader on the bass. So somebody told me about a teacher named Lou Kabak, and Lou Kabak was an upright player who had played with a guitar player, Gabor Szabo. I don't know if you ever heard that name, but check it out. He's got 1 million records, a guitar player. But I went to Lou and said, you know, I've heard that you're the guy I want to take bass lessons from. And he said, well, you're an upright player? And I said, no, I'm an electric player. And somehow I talked myself into his world. He didn't want to take any electric players on, but lucky enough that he took me because he was just an incredible teacher and an incredible human being. And when you talk to some people and they talk about their teachers, and after a while they say it's not about the lesson, it's more about the conversation.
Right.
That's how it was with Lou. It was like he told me, it was like a life conversation with
Sure.
him, you know, and he turned me into an okay reader.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one audition I went to, auditions out in LA at that time, they, you know, something would be posted and like 50 bass players would show up. So I auditioned for, I believe it was Marilyn McCoo from the Fifth Dimension, and they put a chart in front of me that was like, I'm not. I realized at that point that I'm a reader, but I'm not a great reader.
Right, yeah. Yeah, some of that stuff just looks like Greek to me. I'd love to be able to do it, but again, it's people have tried, circle of fifths and fourths and this and that, and I'm like, it's easy. It's, you know, like, no, it just doesn't.
So they went to weed out the great readers from the average readers, and
yeah, but then it gets down to feel, right? I mean, you can read all the notes you want on the charts, but man, you got to make it sing.
Strangely enough, that's what happened in that audition. It's like I stumbled through the chart and got to the end of the tune that was, you know, the groove,
right?
And you know, like then you know, everybody's dancing in the room, and you know, you did the right thing, but you didn't get it all.
Yeah. Did you get the gig at all?
I didn't get the gig.
Didn't get the gig, but you probably got somebody's attention, though, I would imagine.
Yeah, and out in LA, it's like it's all networking, you know, like to the point where you can't trust a person as a friend because it was, what can you do for me? What gig can you get for me?
Sure.
But you know, I was able to. The time I was in LA, I was always able to keep a musical job. Not always doing the kind of music I want, but there was work, you know, enough work out there to be.
I was gonna say sometimes you have to do that though, right? Just to keep yourself going. I know, you know, my buddy that I sing with, he broke his shoulder not too long ago and riding his bike, and he says, we were just down here rehearsing last night, and he did about 20 minutes. He said, all right, I'm done, you know, and he says, I've had to relearn all of my finger picking is, you know, he hadn't picked it up in 6-8 weeks. And I said, boy, it's amazing how quickly it goes. And we've been playing since we were in high school, you know, 40 years. So it's, you got to keep at it. Yeah. So now I'm going to jump to 2012 when you got inducted in the Hall of Fame. How was that experience?
It was a dream come true in that, like, all the people that, you know, going back to my idols of getting into those bands in the early 70s, you know, what an honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with all the people that are my heroes.
Right. Yeah, I was there. I remember that. It was when I was on the board, and remember those days well at the trough. So it was it's got to be. I mean, we kind of mentioned, you know, you went to LA and there wasn't an industry, but there's certainly a scene here in Buffalo.
More so than any other city than I've ever been in. More great players, great bands, places that are to play, like what Dwayne Hall and the Hall family have done with the Sportsman's Tavern is like a lifeline for musicians in Buffalo. It's like, I can't say enough about it.
Oh, that's like our own Robert's Western world here in Buffalo. And,
absolutely.
Dwayne's always told me, he says, Nashville guys, they'd rather play here than play down in Nashville. Because it's such a music scene, and people are, you know, the camaraderie between everybody and the ability for people just to kind of pick up. And I mean, the whole Twang Gang thing, when people are just getting up there and, you know, you play this, let's, you know, and it seems like from what you're telling me, you all played together over the last 40, 50 years anyway, you know. So it's kind of
like,
cool.
yeah, there's definitely a Buffalo sound, and people recognize
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But also going back to the Sportsman's, when before Kenny Behringer passed away and he was booking the Sportsman's, he'd bring in a lot of solo touring acts that were promoting their records but not able to carry a band.
Right.
So I was able to play with a lot of different people in that way too that were coming through town, and we'd be backing them up.
Mm-hmm.
And got to play with Elliot Randall from Steely Dan fame at Sportsman's, and touring bands from L.A., Vancouver, passing through town.
Sure.
So because of that, and because there's so many great players in Buffalo and venues to play, I've talked to a lot of people that said, you know, no matter what big city they're from, I can't believe the music scene you guys have in Buffalo.
Right. Yeah. Now, when they would come into town, would they give you the charts, or would they give you stuff to listen to, and you could pick it up and kind of,
depending on who it was and what they had, a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just had to go home and chart out everything, which was, you know, a lot of times the normal.
Mm-hmm. Now, did they give you any leeway, or did they just kind of get to town and it's like, okay, guys, let's go.
Get to town and let's go.
Wow.
And it always worked out.
I was going to say, you never can tell though when you go to these shows. It's like, I'm always like incredulous with the musicianship, and it's like, you guys just, you know, someone will get out of the audience and get invited to get up.
Yeah.
And then it's just boom, you know. And then it's neat now to see a lot of the younger players getting up.
Yeah.
With you veterans, you know, and it's really something cool to see.
So one time, Denny Lane from Wings and Terry Sylvester from the Hollies came in. Same thing. We just backed them up and go on stage and do it.
Wow. So you were on that bill. That's got to be pretty cool to, you know, say, you know, again, you've got to have the chops to be able to do that, or they wouldn't ask you, right? It's you know, out of all the folks around town who can play bass,
it's one of those things that's it's great to have on your resume, but Buffalo's got such great players. I mean, it's like all major league, you know, like whoever you're playing with is like you're just playing with an incredible singer, guitar player, keyboard player, horn player. There's no drop off point.
Right. Yeah. How do you keep your name out there for folks like that are, I mean, I'm assuming you don't have an agent or anything like that, right? So it's just because, like you said, there's a whole bunch of people to pick from. So how do people know to pick your name out of the
It's like
hat?
you said about before. It's like somebody says your name to somebody else.
That's the word of mouth thing.
Yeah.
Having that reputation, always showing up on time, right? Actually showing up 15 minutes early is on time.
Right. If you show up on time, you're late.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I've been in theater, and that was always the rule. It's like, if call is at 6:30, you be there by 6:15, and if you want to chat with everybody, get there at 6. You know,
right?
But you're ready to roll at 6:30, right? Yeah, it's that's a wild thing. Now, as you can see, I've got lots of records and recordings. So what can I find that you've recorded on so that I can add to that Buffalo Music Hall of Fame collection that I've got?
Oh, folk singer Nan Hoffman from Buffalo did her album, the Argyle Street Band, stuff with off of that. It's something that I don't keep track of, like what I did or you know, when asked that question, I I don't have a ready answer. Like, I don't listen to it. I don't anything. Willie Schultz's album.
Okay.
Just did a record with Pete Holclin.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's like you know, watching The Wrecking Crew and some of those movies. Those guys are like, we don't know what we played on. We were just here, play this song, You know, we maybe not have had the vocals, just lay the track down so the vocalists can come in and lay their vocals over top of it and rock and roll. You know, it's cool. But again, you know, seeing, you know, I'll start researching and going down the rabbit holes. Like, oh my God, I didn't know we did that one and that one. And like I said, you were showing me a bunch of photographs before we got on the air, and I'm like, wow, these are some really big bands and heavy hitters. And you know, now like some of those, like you showed me, you played with some of the guys from Spyro Gyro and that. Did you like travel at all with any of these guys, or
no? That was strictly a local thing. That was before actually Spyro Gyro started.
Okay.
So Spyro Gyro was launched out of Buffalo, but not really so much of a Buffalo band.
Right.
Tom Walsh was, you know, when they started, it was all local players. It evolved into something else.
Right. Now, did you ever play with Ted, the late great Ted Reinhardt?
I did.
Wow.
Not in the band. I mean, different sessions or one night type of, type of gigs.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know you mentioned Sandy Konikoff, and I mean, man, doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Yes.
I mean, I got to see him play once. It was, gosh, because I know he doesn't play, out, but it had to be 20 years ago, maybe, down at the Trough when it was still there. And I think on a Tuesday night they were doing some kind of pickup thing, and Sandy was playing. I called my son. I'm like, dude, you got to come down with me. I go,
Yeah.
So I went down. I'm like, wow, yeah, this is. And you mentioned the Buffalo Sound. I actually tried to get the Buffalo Sound inducted into the Hall of Fame. I said, we have a sound that's like ours. It's like you can, put your finger on some of those other areas that had a very distinct, like those are the Swampers, or that's the the Detroit guys.
So getting the chance to play with Sandy when I was 22, 23 years old was, his reputation, preceded him, and it was, it was tough walking onto the stage for the first time.
I can imagine, yeah.
And I remember when Tommy Calandra had his studio, and he'd call me to do a session. And I was like, Tommy, why are you calling me? You're the best bass player right now. He goes, no, man, I want you to do it. I said, oh, okay, I'll do my best.
Right. Yeah. All those BCMK records, those are hard to come by these days. Or if you can come by them, they're not cheap. So those are highly collectible records.
Yeah, Nick Veltri gave me some on CD, but some early stuff that he did with Larry Rizzuto.
Right.
Who was another amazing musician in town, drummer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when you think about all the folks that have come through and then recorded, like Tommy's basement, like how many basements around Buffalo are, I mean, we're in my basement here doing the podcast, and all the great stuff that has happened. And, you mentioned Joe Hesse, and I he told the story. I met him when the Road did their reunion up at the Hard Rock Cafe in 2012. And he's like, he says, a young Billy Sheehan used to poke his head through my basement window and watch me play. And that's how, that was his aha moment, and I'm like, no kidding. And I still have a picture in my head. I mean, I'm a graphic artist by trade, so one of these days I'm going to actually put that down and actually paint it or draw it or something, because I'm looking at my basement window over there, and I could just imagine someone just peeking down. And
well, when I started practicing in my parents' basement in North Buffalo, my next door neighbor, Tim Shea, his best friend was Michael Campagna. And Michael Campagna heard me play by listening through my basement window. They lived next door. The sound would be coming out of the window. If it wasn't for that, Michael maybe I never would have been asked to be a bass player in his band.
Yeah, see, I love those kind of stories, because it's, it's kind of that, because you said, did you go to Joe's or were you in?
No, that was just a neighborhood place to go to high school dances. And here, Michael Spriggs play.
Right.
Another Buffalo Hall of Famer out in Nashville right now. But,
right.
You just go to the high school dance and there they'd be.
Yeah. He was the Rogues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in my neighborhood, it was Steve Nathan and the Ugly Brothers. They were like the best band around.
Yeah. Wow. It's it would be something just to do almost like they've got these like Buffalo tours to like tour these neighborhoods, and,
And see, like
for real music, like guys like me who really dig this stuff. To say,
but it's also, as you mentioned, Kenmore had this pocket of musicians.
Yeah.
Buffalo had that. West Side had that. North Buffalo had that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between East, West, and Joe's, there was kind of like this triangle. Yeah, and it's. I remember asking. I think I had Tosh Simchak. I said, "You're not from up here." Oh no, we were the Cheektowaga.
Yeah,
boys,
that was like a whole nother section.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, and they all. It all seemed like they all had like a specific sound. They had specific. There was a whole bunch of those kind of guys, like you were just mentioning, but all those Hall of Famers and all those great players played together, and it really just intrigues me, which is why I like doing this podcast, because I just keep learning about all these different people, and they're, they may not have, become household names like the Goose or, Ani DeFranco or something, but that doesn't mean they're not as good,
So I got to play with Sandy, and before I went to L.A., got to play with him in L.A., came back here and got to play with him with John Brady and Bruce Bricado,
right,
in the Black Cat Band, and then got to play with him again. We had a band that had every Monday night at the Trelf downtown, Buffalo, which was kind of a Buffalo blues sound, promoting that, the Buffalo feel.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Anger and Sandy and Mick Hayes, Doug Yeomans, Al Monte.
Yeah, wow. It's again. There's another super group, kids. I mean, I wish I would have known and been around. I mean, I grew up in Fredonia, so I wasn't up here until I didn't move to Buffalo till '99. So I really didn't learn about all this stuff till the 2000s, especially joining the board on the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, and I just go, man, I just wish especially in the 80s, I wish I would have trekked up here I remember a lot of friends would come up to Buffalo to see music, and I'm like, no, I'm going to stay down here and, maybe come up to the Odd to see Billy Joel or something like that, but nothing of the, the local scene, and missed all those great bands back then. So.
Yeah. There was bars, Aliota's on Hurdle Avenue, the Bona Vista, live music 6 nights a week.
Right. Yeah. Now, did you ever get to play like McVan's or Glen Park or any of those types of places?
No,
or?
I didn't play. I was a little too young for Glen Park.
Mm-hmm.
The Raven was playing there, and I couldn't, I was like 16, 17.
Okay.
So I didn't get to do that. And the style of music I was playing, we never played McVan's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other bigger places like Melody Fair? Or?
Yeah, I did Melody Fair, and trying to think of other venues around at that time at that size.
Yeah, that was always. I always remember my parents always used to come up from Fredonia and go to Melody Fair. I never got to Melody Fair, which I heard so many great stories.
Yeah,
and, like
it had the revolving stage.
Yeah,
you'd get up there and.
I had a friend of mine who shot photography there for a bunch of years, and he was like one of the go-to guys to shoot the shows, and it's like, wow, I just
I would think that would be a tough show to photograph with the stage rotating all around.
Yeah, you got, and especially back then, now with digital cameras, you can go click, 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 and make sure you get a good one, and you had to hope, man, that film, you didn't have blur on that film, it's, that's when quite honestly, that's when it was really an art, it's still an art now, but it's a little easier, I think, just because of the nature of, you can take 500 shots a night and hope to get 6 good ones, you know, but back then, if you had a couple rolls of film, that you had 72 shots, you had 36 a roll, and if they
cross your fingers,
if they didn't come out, you were screwed, right? You didn't.
The lighting was right, and
or you had to know how to adjust for all that. And it's really, really, really wild stuff. So, well, Steve, we're getting close to the top of the hour. So, any final words that like gigs you got coming up or projects you're working on? Or I know you said you just finished recording with Pete Holtman, and
I guess the one thing that comes to my mind right off is all the great players that I played with at if I forgot somebody's name, how remiss I would be for not
That's right.
for not including them in this podcast. But there's just so many. Everybody I play with in Buffalo is just such a joy to work with.
Right. Yeah. And before we go, was there ever like one like special concert that'll always stick out in your mind? Man, this was like we were on fire that night. It just everything worked.
Well, when you started asking the question, the first thing that came to my mind was any concert you went to that from another band that was really explosive like that. And for me, the first time I heard the Raven, and I couldn't believe the energy coming from this band. It was like a railroad train, coming at you.
Yeah.
Gary Malaber and Tommy Calandra were just the best rhythm section that I could imagine at that time.
Right. And of course Gary's still going strong, and yeah. That's great stuff. Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough for taking time to come down here and share your stories. And there's going to be I'm going to make a cool digital flip book. Steve has shared some great photos of some of the old stuff back in the day, so we can keep these stories alive and keep the memories going. And we don't want to stop talking about this stuff, because it's part of our legacy, part of our heritage.
Well,
and
thanks for doing what you're doing. People like you, people like Nick Veltri, who's got such a great bass player and has got such a wide memory and understanding of what Buffalo music is. And people like that.
Yeah, Nick, I just had Nick down here, and I think I'd need about 48 hours worth of shows, because and every time we stopped recording, he was here with Sammy Guarino the first time, and and those guys were great, and then of course I hit the off button, and I'm like, oh, I should have kept that on, because they just kept going and going. I'm like, oh, this is great stuff. So, but again, Steve, thanks for coming down. And for everyone who's tuned in, we've hoped you've had just as much fun as we have. And as always, you can find the podcast where you get your podcast, at Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Audible, iHeartRadio, thebuffalohive.com, YouTube. And of course, you can always find the podcast at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music. And I'll have some photos of Steve. And like I said, I'll have a nice digital flip book and some more information about him. And maybe some links to, I don't know, you're on social media at all, or
Facebook?
Yep, we'll have some Facebook. That way you can check out and see where he's playing, and see a legacy musician at his best. So, again, Steve, thanks for coming down.
Thank you,
for everyone
Greg.
who's tuned in. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. In the Flamingo Lounge is made possible in part by CatsLikeUs.com, your online store for authentic vintage clothing and accessories. Buffalo Ironworks, an intimate live music venue and bar located in the Cobblestone District in downtown Buffalo. Sportsman's Tavern, Buffalo's original honky-tonk and popular live music venue. And by Diamond Hawk Golf Course and Pub, Western New York's premier golf course, restaurant, and banquet facility. At the Hawk, the bar is hopping year-round with live music every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and some other nights, too. Tune in for a new episode every Saturday at 9 a.m. EST at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music. Bark, Zoe, bark. Good girl.